Hello, welcome back to Chris Nicole Style. I'm your girl Chris. So I want to talk about my hiatus because I feel like a lot of women and men can relate to this. If you take a look at my videos, I was very inconsistent for a very long time, and I had about a 3 year hiatus. And the reason why is because I was strictly in survival mode. I had to take a break. I didn't have the mental capacity or even the time to dedicate to just getting in front of the camera and doing what I absolutely have always loved to do for the past 10 years. And that is talk about style, beauty, and feminine elevation. Let's talk a little bit about it because I am sure people can relate to this. I was experiencing so much burnout from my job. I was a legal assistant for 17 years and not at one job, not at one firm, but at multiple firms. But in the career for 17 years. And when I tell you they will burn you out, honey, if you let them, they will burn you out. I remember I remember at one point, one of the legal assistants, she went on leave for 2 months and 7 attorneys fell on me. I had to assist 7 attorneys within 8 hours. And when I tell y'all, I felt like a chicken with his head cut off. Child. And then I ended up switching to another job, which was a part time job. And I was actually making a little bit more at that job. I thought this was a blessing in disguise. I was like, oh my goodness. A recruiter had reached out to me that knew me from a prior position, and just she knew my work ethic, and she said, hey, we probably can get you in at part time. And I said, hey, let's go for it, honey. Child, you know what? I probably will talk more about that, more in depth conversation in another video. But to give you a gist, I was dealing with an incredibly, probably the most toxic coworker I had ever experienced in my 17-year legal career. I didn't, I didn't think they could get more toxic than that. The things that I was dealing with from this lady, people would have walked out of. Actually, I received word that people have walked out of there within a couple of weeks. And I had dealt with it for 8 months. And I was trying so hard to hold on because I had a very good schedule. It was part time. I was off every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I wanted to dive back into my passions, but because I was dealing with that on top of their workload was actually a lot for part time. And when I tell y'all dealing with both of those things, I could not even pick up the phone to record. I couldn't do it. And I'm pretty sure some people can relate to this. Burnout is just so real, and it saps you of your energy where you just don't have the motivation sometimes to do the very things that you love to do. I always love to dance, I love to sing, I love to write poetry, I love to create content, I love to write. My blog suffered, my body suffered, I wasn't moving as much. My writing suffered. I had writer's block. I went through so much. And eventually I said, enough is enough. I am walking away from this career. Now, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to it in a different position, a less stressful position. But right now, I have no plans in walking back into a law firm ever again in my life. Um, it was just too much for me. And I am a person that goes over and beyond. So I think people feel like, oh, she did this much, let's give her more. No, no. And I didn't have, my boundaries were not strong enough when I was working. So eventually I quit my job, and by the grace of God, I was able to survive. Still surviving. Eventually, I'm probably going to go back to work at some point, but I did start a few businesses. I started my Poshmark business. So right now on Poshmark, basically it's My closet, for the most part, I have a few pieces from that are not my, actually more than a few pieces that are not, that were not mine, but the majority of the clothes I used to wear. I started this whole all natural journey some years ago, and I still had just this gold mine of gorgeous clothes in my closet, and I didn't know what to do with it, so it just stayed there while I tried to build my new wardrobe capsule. But now I was like, you know what? Actually, a year ago, I was like, you know what? I want to actually start a Poshmark business. So I started with my closet. Eventually, it's going to be, I'm going to venture out into consignment shops and so forth. So I'm going to do all the shopping for you, and I'm going to clean it up for you. And all you got to do is just sit back, relax, honey, and just scroll and say, ship. But right now, it's just my closet for the most part. So there are a lot of smaller sizes. But if you are a person that wears anywhere, I would say between a size 4 and 6, then go on over to my Poshmark. If you wear a size 9 shoe, go to my Poshmark, take a look, see if you see anything. You can counter offer as well. 9 times out of 10, I will work with you if you're reasonable. So that's just a little something something, secondly, I started a second business. Well, I'm working on it. I haven't finished it. It's going to take a minute, but it's something that's so near and dear to my heart, and I will talk about that when it is complete. It's a surprise. But that's what I've been doing since I've been off work. I've really been focusing on myself, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, getting closer to God, praying more, honey, because I felt like I wasn't praying as much when I was working. I was in a hole. But one thing I learned is that walking away from financial comfort is an act of self love. Walking away from something that is financially secure but is wrecking your mental health, it's an act of self love. There is no amount of money in the world, no amount of money in the world that can replace my peace. Absolutely not. They can even compare to my peace. Now, the additional thing is I was in a relationship. I was in a relationship for about a year exactly. And I really cared and loved the person so much, but I could not, I don't think the person loved me. And even though the person would probably say something completely different, but I feel like love is shown, through your actions. And I was in a relationship in which I was not receiving support. He did not like me creating content whatsoever. So that was another reason why I was off of social media. I was so discouraged. It wasn't that I was allowing him to control me, but I was allowing him to dim my light. And he wanted me to stay in the legal field. He didn't want me to leave. And that was incredibly difficult to hear someone, that you could potentially marry basically tell you, I don't want you to pursue your dreams. And of course, there were some other things in between involved as to why I eventually just let the relationship go completely. I couldn't, I couldn't be with the person long term. I just couldn't. I thought, I date with a purpose. I date for marriage. I've always been like that. And you don't just go in when you're dating for marriage, you don't just go in thinking, oh, this is going to end at some point. You know what I mean? But I remember dating the person and realizing very early, I don't think this is going to last because this person is very closed minded. They are very dismissive. I was with a dismissive avoidant. And if you've ever been with somebody like that, it's terrible. It really is. It just, I'm a person that's very expressive. I love to express myself. I love to express how I feel. And if you are constantly telling me that my feelings don't mean anything, and you're constantly invalidating my feelings, and I'm trying to tell you what's bothering me, but you don't want to hear it, I cannot be with a person. I can't marry a person like that. Cannot be with somebody like that long term. And I see too many women just settle just for the sake of a ring. And I talk about this in my Truthfully Chris series on Instagram. I didn't want to be that woman. I could have. I probably would be married right now, but I would not be happy. And so I walked away from that relationship, and I'm a single woman. I have always wanted to be married. I think marriage is such a beautiful, sacred act of love, and that's just my opinion. But I'm not gonna get married just because. I'm just not gonna do it. I don't care what the world thinks about me. I'm almost 40. I don't care. Okay, it's not your life. They're not living my life. This is my life, and I have to be very smart when it comes to my life because I've made some very dumb choices. But one thing I learned is that when somebody truly loves you, they are going to be your biggest cheerleader. They are never going to want to dim your light. They're gonna want you to shine. And if a person doesn't want you to shine, then you have to think twice about whether or not that person should be in your life. Another thing I had to do was I had to walk away from another friendship. Y'all, one day I'll tell my backstory because I have a very interesting backstory. I'm a late bloomer, but I try to develop friendships at work because I'm an introvert. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't know where else to develop friends, and I think work is one of the worst places to try to befriend people. But I remember this last time around, I befriended this lady, and she was a little older than me, but the friendship was so one sided. And I had dealt with so much for years that eventually I couldn't take it anymore. And the very last thing that she did, I was done at that point because I had already had a discussion with her some years ago about her behavior. And I said, you know what? She already knows. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm just going to hit the block button. And that's exactly what I did. I blocked her from social media, blocked her from my phone. No more access. No one from my past has access to me. They shouldn't, unless they're dialing from a different number. But these were things that I had to do to protect myself. It was all an act of survival, an act of preserving my peace, preserving my sanity, because I felt like I was about to go crazy in all three situations: my job, my relationship, my friendship. And I was just so upset because naturally you want these things to work. This is a part of life. This is human connection. And human connection is supposed to be beautiful. But when human connection is so scarred, it just becomes daunting, and it's an energy drainer. And I got tired. And when I tell you I feel so much better, child, I feel so much better. And I'm still recovering. I could still feel that I'm recovering from the burnout, but I will eventually get there. I just want to work harder on my businesses. I really don't want to go back to corporate America because the stress was insurmountable. But if I do have to go back, I'm probably going to take a pay cut just to preserve my peace. Because I told y'all, there's no amount of money in the world that can compare to my joy, my happiness, my peace. So I hope y'all could take something away from this and be uplifted and encouraged. And if you're going through something where you're not sure if you should walk away or not, save this video and just know that there is someone out here like me that can relate to you. And I've done it all. I've walked away from all three things, and I'm still surviving. I'm still here, and I'm happier than I was before. See y'all. I hope y'all have a beautiful weekend.